Hey everyone, welcome back. This deep dive, we're taking on The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
And you even included the prefaces by Mark Allen and Russell E. DiCarlo with this one,
Yeah.
which is great because, I don't know, it just adds another layer, I think, that we can kind of explore.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess today, let's try to really get a grasp on Tolle's view of enlightenment. Like,
Yeah.
what is it? What's blocking us from it? And how can we, tap into this power of the present moment that he's always talking about?
Yeah, what I think is really interesting is how Tolle uses this analogy of a beggar sitting on a box of gold,
Uh-huh.
totally unaware of its value to describe like our state of enlightenment.
Hmm. It's such a striking image,
Right.
right? We're all carrying this potential for enlightenment within us, but we're often oblivious to it, just like that beggar.
Right.
You know what I find fascinating is that both Mark Allen and Russell DeCarlo, like in their prefaces, they were both drawn to this aspect of Tolle's work. His idea that enlightenment is not some like distant goal,
Right.
but an ever-present reality.
And that gets to the heart of what he's teaching, really. He really emphasizes the importance of direct experience, moving beyond kind of intellectual understanding.
Yeah.
He even says that the word God,
Yeah.
which is like laden with all this baggage, all these interpretations over centuries, can actually become a barrier to experiencing this reality.
Interesting.
So instead, he focuses on this concept of being,
Okay.
which is like much more immediate and accessible.
I don't know. It reminds me of that quote. I think it was Rumi who said, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there."
Mhm.
It seems like Tolle is pointing towards that same field.
Yeah.
But instead of it being a physical place, it's like a state of being.
Exactly. And that's where the whole concept of the mind comes in. Um, Tolle doesn't see the mind as inherently bad,
Yeah.
but rather as like a tool
Mm-hmm.
that we've become a little too reliant on. In fact, he argues that our constant thinking,
Yeah.
that endless stream of thoughts, is actually what prevents us from fully experiencing being.
So it's not that we need to like stop thinking altogether,
Right.
but rather become aware of the thoughts and not get completely swept away by them.
Exactly.
Okay.
We can think of it like being at the ocean.
Yeah.
The waves of thought are constantly rolling in, but we don't have to get pulled under by every single one.
Mhm.
We can learn to observe them, acknowledge them,
Yeah.
and let them pass without like losing our footing.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes this idea of watching the thinker so much more tangible.
Right.
Instead of feeling like we need to wage war on our own minds, it becomes more about, creating this space of observation.
Yeah.
It's almost like a scientist studying a phenomenon.
It's about shifting from being lost in thought to becoming the observer of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's in that space of observation,
Yeah.
that gap between thoughts, where we can start to get a taste of being.
And this connects directly back to his idea of, this power of now.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like what he's saying is, by being fully present, we can break free from the tyranny of the mind
Right.
and tap into this deeper level of awareness.
He makes the point that when we dwell on the past or we worry about the future, we're essentially living in a mental construct,
Mm-hmm.
that keeps us disconnected from the reality of the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only in the present moment, in the now, that we can truly access our power,
Yeah.
our creativity, and like our true selves.
This really resonates with me because I don't know about you, but like I often find myself getting caught up in like anxieties about the future
Yeah.
or rehashing, past events.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. It feels like I'm constantly missing out on the richness of what's happening, like right here, right now.
That's a common human experience.
Yeah.
But Tolle challenges us to question the validity of this psychological time.
Okay.
He argues that it's a fabrication of the mind,
Mm.
and that our true nature lies beyond its grasp.
So how do we break free from this mental time warp and actually start living in the now?
Yeah.
He talks about, the importance of presence, but it's not about like spacing out or going into a trance, is it?
No, not at all. True presence is about a heightened awareness, a vibrant aliveness to the present moment. It's about engaging with life fully with all of our senses.
This reminds me of that story about the Zen master who would unexpectedly hit his students with a stick
Oh, yeah.
to test their presence.
If they were lost in thought, they'd get whacked.
Yeah.
While that's a rather extreme example, it does highlight this point that presence is not about passivity. but about a heightened state of alertness. It's about being fully awake to what is happening, both within us and around us.
So it's less about trying to force ourselves into a certain state
Right.
and more about cultivating an awareness of what's already here.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
about recognizing that the present moment is all we ever truly have.
Yeah.
And that in this present moment, there is the depth and a richness that often goes unnoticed
Hmm.
when we're caught up in our mental dramas.
And this brings us to another key concept, which is the ego.
Yeah.
Tolle seems to have I don't know, a pretty dim view of the ego.
Yeah. He sees the ego as this mind-created sense of self
Okay.
that thrives on fear and separation.
Mm.
It's constantly seeking to reinforce its own importance,
Yeah.
to maintain a sense of control, and to protect itself from perceived threats.
And he even goes so far as to say that the ego is the source of, like, most of our suffering. It seems counterintuitive, but the more we try to cling to this, like, false sense of self, the more we're perpetuating our own pain.
It's like trying to grasp smoke.
Yeah.
The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers.
Mhm.
Tolle argues that that the ego feeds on our insecurities,
Okay.
our fears, and our sense of lack.
And what I find interesting is that DiCarlo, in his preface, he points out how subtly the ego can operate.
Right.
It's not always this, like, loud, demanding voice. Sometimes it's disguised as our best intentions or, like, our spiritual aspirations, even our desire to become enlightened.
Yeah, that's such a crucial point.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to get caught up in this idea of becoming someone better, more spiritual, more enlightened.
Right.
But if we're not careful, that pursuit itself can become another ego trap.
So how do we discern between a genuine desire for growth
Right.
and an ego-driven pursuit of, like, self-improvement?
Tolle suggests that the key lies in our relationship with the present moment.
Mm.
He argues that any attempt to escape the row, now even in the name of spiritual growth, is ultimately a form of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
True transformation, he suggests, only happens when we fully embrace the reality of what is.
This makes me wonder, like, if the ego is so deeply ingrained in our experience, how can we ever hope to, like, break free from its grip?
He does offer a number of practices and insights to help us disentangle ourselves from the ego's influence. But before we delve into those, let's take a closer look at another challenging concept he introduces,
Okay.
which is the pain body.
The pain body.
It's a bit of a heavy topic,
Yeah.
but I think understanding this is essential to grasping the full scope of his teachings.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, the pain body. It sounds kind of ominous, like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Right.
So how does Tolle define this?
So he describes it as this accumulation of unresolved emotional pain that we carry within us. It's like a shadowy energy field that can influence our thoughts and our emotions and even our physical well-being.
So it's not just about individual experiences of pain, but also like a kind of collective inherited suffering.
Exactly. He suggests that we inherit a pain body from our families and our culture, and even from the history of humanity itself.
Wow.
And this collective pain body can manifest as violence, prejudice, all sorts of destructive behaviors.
It makes you wonder how much of our suffering is, like, truly our own,
Right.
and how much is a result of this inherited burden.
Yeah, it's a complex question, and one that he doesn't offer easy answers for. But he suggests that by becoming aware of the pain body, both individually and collectively, we can start to heal these wounds and create a more peaceful world.
This all ties into his idea that enlightenment isn't about transcending the world, but about transforming it, right?
Absolutely. And one of the ways we can do that is by bringing awareness to our relationships. Tolle argues that most relationships are dysfunctional
Okay.
because we're using them to try to fill a void within ourselves.
Instead of relating to the other person authentically, it's like we're projecting our own needs and fears and unresolved pain onto them. It's almost like we're trying to complete a puzzle using the wrong pieces.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it explains why so many relationships end up causing more pain than joy. Like we're looking to the other person for something that they can never truly give us. A sense of wholeness and completion.
And he even suggests that our love story, like the narrative we create around the relationship, can actually become an ego trap. It's almost as if we become addicted to the drama, the conflict, the ups and downs.
Because it reinforces the ego's sense of self-importance. It gives us something to identify with, something to fight for, something to suffer over.
So how do we break free from this cycle and create relationships that are actually nourishing and supportive?
So Tolle suggests that true love can only flourish um, when we're free from mind identification and the pain body.
Okay.
It's about relating to the other person from a place of presence and awareness, rather than from like our unmet needs and our emotional baggage.
So it's less about finding the perfect partner
Right?
and more about cultivating a certain way of being in the relationship.
Exactly. And that requires a willingness to like look within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
become aware of our own patterns and triggers. He emphasizes the importance of accepting our partner as they are
Yeah.
without trying to change them or mold them into our like ideal image.
And this doesn't mean we like condone bad behavior or stay in unhealthy relationships.
No, no, no.
It's more about approaching the relationship from a place of understanding and compassion.
And that requires us to cultivate presence, not just in our interactions with our partner, but also within ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about being aware of our thoughts and emotions and reactions without getting swept away by them.
Right, right. This connects back to the idea of watching the thinker.
Mhm.
Instead of reacting impulsively, we can learn to pause, observe, and choose a more conscious response.
And that can be incredibly challenging,
Oh, yeah.
especially when we're, triggered or feeling emotionally charged.
Mhm.
But it's in those moments that presence becomes most crucial.
It's like we're building a muscle, like
Yeah.
a muscle of awareness and self-regulation. And the more we practice, the stronger it becomes.
Absolutely. And the more we're able to relate to our partner from a place of authenticity and presence, the more likely we are to create a relationship that is truly fulfilling and supportive.
He even suggests that our relationships can actually be like a powerful spiritual practice, a way to accelerate our own growth and evolution.
Because they provide us with like a constant mirror, reflecting back our own patterns and conditioning. And if we're willing to look deeply into that mirror, we can learn a tremendous amount about ourselves.
It makes you wonder if the challenges we face in relationships are actually opportunities in disguise,
Hmm.
like invitations to become more conscious and awake.
It's a powerful way to reframe those difficult moments. Instead of seeing them as failures or setbacks, we can view them as catalysts for growth and transformation.
And this idea of transformation seems to be like at the core of Tolle's work.
Yeah.
He's not just offering a set of intellectual concepts. He's pointing toward like a radical shift in consciousness.
And that shift, he argues, is accessible to everyone, regardless of their background, beliefs, or experiences.
Okay.
He offers a number of portals, he calls them, to this deeper reality, ways to access the unmanifested, the source of all being.
I'm curious about these portals. He talks about, the now, which we've discussed at length. But what are some of the other pathways that he mentions?
So one of the most powerful portals he points to is inner body awareness.
Okay.
It's about tuning into the sensations, the aliveness, the energy that is always present within our physical form.
He suggests that by inhabiting the body more fully, we can ground ourselves in the present moment and create a sense of stability and peace.
And that this practice can also help us to dissolve the illusion of separation between ourselves and the world around us.
It's like we're bridging the gap between the inner and the outer.
Yeah.
The mind and the body, the individual and the universe.
Exactly. And through this integration, we can start to experience a deeper sense of interconnectedness and wholeness.
I'm also intrigued by his discussion of the relationship between space and time and the unmanifested.
Yeah.
This is where things start to get a little mind-bending.
He delves into some pretty profound concepts here, drawing on insights from both modern physics and ancient spiritual traditions.
He talks about how the solidity of matter is an illusion.
Mhm.
How even seemingly solid objects are mostly empty space.
And he links this to, Buddhist teachings about emptiness, the idea that form is emptiness and emptiness is form.
So what does this have to do with enlightenment?
Well, Tolle suggests that this emptiness, this space, is a manifestation of the unmanifested, the source of all creation.
He even goes so far as to say that that space is the body of God.
It's a bold statement, but it points to the profound interconnectedness of all things. And he reminds us that this vast emptiness that enables the universe to exist isn't just out there in space, it's also within us.
It's that stillness, that peace that we can access when we quiet the mind and connect with our our true nature.
Exactly. It's the ground of being, the source of all creativity and love.
It makes an interesting point that the world with all its imperfections is actually essential for the unmanifested to be realized. It's like we need the contrast, the play of opposites, to appreciate the underlying unity, the oneness of all things.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how he weaves together these seemingly disparate threads like science, spirituality, psychology, even poetry. He's creating a tapestry that's both intricate and expansive, inviting us to explore the nature of reality from multiple perspectives.
And through this exploration, we can begin to loosen the grip of our conditioned minds and open ourselves to a deeper experience of life.
This brings us to another key concept, which is surrender. Tolle seems to present this as the ultimate key to unlocking the power of the present moment. So we've been exploring all these different portals, like the now and inner body awareness, and even the concept of emptiness,
Right.
as a gateway to the unmanifested. And now we're circling back to this idea of surrender. So what makes surrender so crucial in Tolle's view?
Well, he presents surrender as the key to moving beyond those limitations of the ego and accessing a deeper level of consciousness. It's about, letting go of the illusion of control, of resisting the natural flow of life.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, the word surrender often has this negative connotation,
Yeah.
like giving up or admitting defeat. But Tolle seems to be using it in a much more nuanced way.
He's very clear that surrender is not about becoming passive or resigning ourselves to a life of misery. It's more about aligning ourselves with the intelligence of life itself, trusting that there's a deeper wisdom at play, even in the midst of challenging circumstances.
So it's less about giving in and more about letting go of resistance.
Exactly. Like imagine you're a small boat caught in a powerful current.
Okay.
You can fight against the current. You can exhaust yourself trying to control the direction. You might even capsize.
Right.
Or you can surrender to the flow. Adjust your sails and navigate the waters with more grace and ease.
That's a really helpful analogy. It makes me think of times when I've been so fixated on, like, a particular outcome
Yeah.
that I've just missed opportunities or created unnecessary stress by resisting what was actually happening.
We all have those moments.
Yeah.
But Tolle suggests that the more we practice surrender, the more we tap into a sense of peace and freedom that transcends our external circumstances.
And he emphasizes that surrender is not like a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. It's about meeting each moment with acceptance, even the difficult ones.
He even talks about, the possibility of transforming suffering into enlightenment, not by denying the pain, but by bringing the light of consciousness to it, by fully feeling it without resistance.
That seems so counterintuitive. Wouldn't that just make the pain even more intense?
He suggests that when we resist pain, we actually amplify it.
Yeah.
It's like holding a beach ball underwater.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
more you push it down, the more forcefully it's going to pop back up.
Right.
But if you allow the ball to just float freely, it'll find its natural equilibrium.
So by surrendering to the pain, we're not trying to make it go away,
Right.
but rather we're allowing it to move through us without creating this, like, additional suffering.
Exactly. It's about creating space for the pain to exist without becoming identified with it.
Okay.
And in that space, transformation can occur.
He even suggests that forgiveness, like true forgiveness, becomes possible when we surrender to the present moment. It's about letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about the past, the blame, the guilt, the resentment.
Because those stories, they keep us trapped in that cycle of suffering. They prevent us from experiencing the fullness of the now. And, in the now, there's always the possibility for healing, for growth, for a new beginning.
It's a powerful message. It seems like Tolle is offering us this path to freedom,
Yeah.
not by, like, escaping the world or denying its challenges, but by transforming our relationship to them.
And he reminds us that this transformation isn't just for our own benefit. It's for the benefit of the world as a whole.
It's like the ripple effect, as we become more present, more conscious, more aligned with our true nature, those qualities radiate outwards. They influence the people and the systems around us.
He even suggests that we have a responsibility, like almost a cosmic responsibility, to awaken to our true potential. And that by doing so, we contribute to the evolution of consciousness itself.
That's a pretty profound thought. It really puts our individual journeys into this much larger context. It's not just about our own, like, personal happiness, but about contributing to a more loving, just, and peaceful world.
And that's the beauty of his work.
Yeah.
He doesn't offer easy answers or quick fixes. He challenges us to look deeply within ourselves,
Yeah.
to question our assumptions, and to embrace the fullness of life with all its complexities and paradoxes.
Well, this deep dive into the power of now has been truly illuminating. We've explored so many rich and challenging concepts, from the nature of enlightenment to the obstacles of the mind and the ego, from the depths of the pain body to the transformative power of surrender.
And we've touched on how these ideas can revolutionize our relationships.
Yeah.
Help us to create connections that are grounded in authenticity and presence and compassion.
It feels like we've just scratched the surface of what Tolle has to offer.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, I'm curious to know what stands out for you as the listener. What insights resonated most deeply? What questions are you left with? What new paths of exploration have opened up for you?
Yeah, we encourage you to continue contemplating these ideas. Experiment with the practices he suggests, and see how they can transform your experience of life.
And as always, we're here to support you on your journey of discovery. Until next time, keep diving deep.